Vitamin C was really chemically identified in the 1920s, and it was one of the first products commercialized on a large scale. And there's certainly lots of different galenic forms, as we like to call them, available. And it can be intimidating and confusing for many people.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Holistic Navigator podcast, where we believe in the body's capacity for self-healing if it's given the proper nutrients and care it deserves. My name is Brian Strickland. I'm the producer of the show, and as always, I'm joined in the studio today by our host, Ed Jones. On this week's episode, we're talking once again with Richard Passwater Jr., and you might remember that we actually have previously spoken with Richard about collagen production. But today's episode is all about vitamin C. Vitamin C is one of the most basic and essential nutrients out there. It's been around forever, but there is more to it than meets the eye, including skin health and collagen production. Because our bodies don't produce vitamin C on its own, we actually have to get it from our diet or from supplementation, as we prefer. But there are many different forms, and some are more effective than others. So we're breaking down the best practices for choosing a supplement that's right for you, what exactly vitamin C does, and what happens if we don't get enough. So we obviously have a lot of ground to cover, so let's go ahead and jump right into this episode. Here is your host, Mr. Ed Jones.
Thank you, Brian, for that introduction. And here we are again with another super informative Holistic Navigator podcast. We have a gentleman on today that I've had on one other time that was really so informative in regard to building collagen and maybe skin health, muscular tendons and ligaments, and it was Richard Passwater Jr., and we talked about collagen, and it was extremely informative. So I'm welcoming him back today to the Holistic Navigator. Thank you for taking your time, Richard Passwater Jr., to join me.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. It's always an honor and privilege to be on your program, and you always make it very fun for me, and thank you.
Well, thank you. You make it easy for me also. We're going to talk today about something that has probably been around in nutrition stores longer than almost anything other than maybe wheat germ, and that would be vitamin C. You know, I've been doing this for 42 years at this point, started in 1979 as a professional career, but I actually was taking nutrients long before I started, so I've been doing nutrients, and of course vitamin C was always part of that. I'm constantly intrigued by so many aspects of the power of nutrition if it's properly consumed, taken, purchased, and all the parts to the puzzle that we need to address. That's one reason on the Holistic Navigator, I have people like you, Richard, that can inform us of a lot of the details. Because often the devil is in the details, because people who do it improperly, then they say, well, I didn't get results. Well, vitamin C is one of those type of compounds that is, of course, Linus Pauling made it famous back so long ago, and you may know the year, I don't. I remember meeting one Cameron, I think that was his name. I think that was one of Linus Pauling's associates during the early days, and I met him in Chicago, and he actually signed an autograph book for me. And Linus Pauling won the Nobel Peace Prize. He was the one who really spent decades speaking on many subjects, but one of his most passionate was the value of vitamin C for our health. And we're not going to get into all the super particulars of every ailment that a person might consider vitamin C, because I think a lot of people listening to the Holistic Navigator already has a general idea of the benefit of vitamin C. What I want to cover is, again, like the details of perhaps how to choose the best form. What are the different ways of utilizing vitamin C? Why do we need it? And what will it do for our human body? And what will it do if we don't have enough? I know that, the word scurvy has to do with extreme vitamin C deficiency. And that's where they got the word limeys back in the long ago. When people traveled on the ocean and they did not have any vitamin C foods, they would start really getting deathly sick because of the lack of C. And then they would start eating limes. And that's where the word limey came up. But I have always taken vitamin C from age 14. I'll be 64 here just very, very soon, right around the corner, and done every kind there is. In fact, I just did an IV about 3 days ago, Richard. I don't do them often, but I am, again, a guinea pig, and I'm a huge fan of using vitamin C along with all the other nutrients. I really look at nutrients like an orchestra. They play together to make the most beautiful music, and you can't just have one or two instruments. And they all need to be harmonious. And I know, and I'm going to let you speak here in a minute, but I know that, almost every single warm-blooded creature on this earth produces their own vitamin C, especially high doses when they are ill, except there's about humans, and I think two other little creatures. Maybe you can remember that, a guinea pig and maybe a small monkey. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Oh, there's a group of primates, which humans are amongst. There's a group of small rodent-type animals like the guinea pig and the caballero. It's kind of a big guinea pig like in Brazil. I see them. And bats. And it's one of the reasons that bats are often studied for viruses and bacteria and things, because they don't make vitamin C much like humans do. So when you read that somebody was studying bats, you say, first thing that comes to mind is, why would somebody do that? They share a trait with humans that they don't make vitamin C.
Interesting. I wonder where along the pathway of evolving this kind of switched off. I wonder if it did switch off or if we were just really programmed early on. But it's an interesting concept that, when our pets get ill, and if you test their vitamin C when they're well, it will be a modest amount. When they're ill, they're going to produce pretty dang large amounts. Well, I'm a fan of taking vitamin C normally for prevention, but I also really up my dose if I think I'm what I will call under the weather. And we can talk about that from all aspects, including, anything that's going around, any issues. But I also believe it's highly important to maintain many of the optimal levels of our health, from the artery health to the brain health to the liver detoxing, all of that. I really want to maybe let's delve into a person walks into a nutrition store or they go online, and Lordy, how many different types of C are there? There's got to be. I know there's dozens of different forms of vitamin C, and then you've got, different tablets and capsules and powders and this and that. And just like one thing I tell people all the time when they purchase ascorbic acid powder, I say, you know what, that's fine, except it's going to be hard on the enamel of your teeth. Well, no one seems to know that, so I recommend people brushing their teeth after that. Plus, we'll talk about bowel tolerance. So let's just pretend like we're going into, or you're taking someone into a very well-stocked nutrition store and you're going to the vitamin C section. Let's talk about some of these things. The newer one called Lipo C, which is kind of a fat-soluble. Tell me about that, Richard.
Well, you're absolutely correct. Vitamin C was really chemically identified in the 1920s, and it was one of the first products commercialized on a large scale, and there's certainly lots of different galenic forms, as we like to call them, available, and it can be intimidating and confusing for many people. And I don't think that there's one that's ideal for everybody. As you mentioned, people have different doses. We all have some bio-individuality to us. We have different environments, different genes. We partake in different recreational activities, different things stress us. And as you mentioned, when an animal that does make vitamin C gets sick, their body produces more vitamin C to help stimulate the immune system. If they get chased by a bigger animal, you need vitamin C to make adrenaline and noradrenaline and cortisol. So the vitamin C levels will go down, and somebody dealing with a challenging situation will need more than somebody who's relaxed and kind of got the world by the throat, as they like to say where I'm from. And there's a variety of different, if a dog gets bit by a snake, the venom from the snake will usually stimulate a large increase in vitamin C production as the vitamin C helps, deal with the toxin in the body. And it's very hard to say this is a dose that's good for you, Bob, or you, Carol, or you, Jack, or something. I have some guidelines about where to start, and then kind of take the old super nutrition or orthomolecular medicine way of then trying to fine tune the dose for your needs over time. But the vitamin C used in the body is in many of the biological functions is L-ascorbic acid, and that is available as a supplement straight up, and it's often the most affordable, cost effective form, and it comes in a powder and a capsule and a tablet, and for most people that can be a very good option. But people who have, as an example, ulcers or inflamed gastrointestinal tracts due to challenges from autoimmune system conditions or inflammatory conditions, the ascorbic acid can be a bit rough. And I always suggest those people and to consider mineral ascorbate, where the ascorbic acid's been reacted in a complex with a mineral, such as sodium or calcium or magnesium or zinc, and a complex can return to its parts when it's broken down by the body, and inside the body, after sometimes in the gut, sometimes in the bloodstream, sometimes after it's transported into cells, can be converted into that mineral and into the vitamin C again. And then you mentioned the lipophilic or liposomal vitamin C. That's the newest one that's been commercially available. And it's a vitamin C molecule that's surrounded by like a lecithin or a surfactant, a phosphatidylcholine or phosphatidylethylamine. And it helps increase the absorption of the product into the bloodstream, and even more importantly, it helps transport it through the body, and can even take the vitamin C through a cell wall, and it doesn't have to wait in line outside of a receptor site. So if somebody really is trying to increase vitamin C levels rapidly or to achieve higher vitamin C levels for a particular application, I think the liposomal form is the most utilized in the body, and unfortunately has a price associated with it. But I find that somebody who's on a budget, they could look for ascorbic acid to start. But somebody who's trying to really achieve some high levels of vitamin C quickly, they should look more for the liposomal vitamin E or C first, and then take a look at the cost. How much they want to take a day, and there's nothing wrong buying 2 or 3 different forms, and I think you made a very strong point too, that the ascorbic acid can be damaging for teeth. So if you're going to drink it or chew it in a gummy or a tablet, in those applications, I think having a mineral ascorbate or a form that's going to be less acidic is preferential. I remember the old days where there was a particular chain that ran back in the 1970s ran a campaign talking about how vitamin C was essential for healthy teeth, which it is. You can't build connective tissue without vitamin C. At least 7 of the 10 enzymes that make collagen require vitamin C, but they made chewable vitamin C tablets that had lots of sugar and ascorbic acid, and the chewable tablets actually damaged the kids' teeth that were taking it to build stronger teeth. So I really like the way you were warning to, if somebody does take ascorbic acid straight up, to brush the teeth afterwards.
That's some really great points, because one of the things you said I really value is the fact that there's nothing wrong with combining different forms of vitamin C. And on the Lipo C, you and I both know that there are different manufacturers of that. Some, what I would call it, not grade A, but a really pure, strong source of lipo, which means cooked with a fat molecule. What that means is it's going to have potentially higher levels of absorption and last longer in the body. But there's also other brands in capsules that are maybe a little bit less of the current state of research that are using a type of lipo, but there's brands that I respect probably as an A-plus brand. There are no bad ones. It's just good, better, best. There's no doubt. I normally, always kind of put my 2 cents worth in. I normally take about 1,000 milligrams of Lipo C twice a day. We need to all know, and I think we do know, that vitamin C is water soluble. What does that mean? It means it goes in pretty quickly. It doesn't stay around too long, and you urinate it out. And so to maintain a tissue level, it really requires at least twice a day dosing. I remember seeing a study where they actually tested the vitamin C levels in your eyeballs and found that you take any dose, it could be 25 milligrams to 1,000, and it would only hang in the eyeball maybe 2 hours, and then it would start decreasing. I think perhaps the tissues may hold it longer. I don't know. But sometimes I kind of experimented using a very small dose more often, but that gets to be a headache at a certain time. But if I had eye issues or something, or I was having eye surgery or wanted more in the eyeball, then I would do small doses more often. And I look at people, and that's what I've spent my whole life doing, is really astutely observing people. Everything from their look, their story, their blood work, their nutrients, their food they eat, the sleep they get or don't, the food, and all the components. And I watch them because now I've been doing this over four decades. I can really see different trends. And those people who really embrace a very comprehensive nutritional plan, they, not always, but the vast majority of the time, they age slower, they look better, they seem to have less diseases, and their blood work always is better than the people who don't do the same thing. In fact, there was and I don't think I've said this on the Holistic Navigator, there was a gentleman that had this huge amount of blood work done, and it was more from a functional perspective, not from diagnosing diseases. It was all about empowering his health, and it was about $500 for the blood work. And he was about 72 years old, and this happened about 3 years ago. And he, I think his name was Jim, and so Jim, we looked at it, and he was exceptional. I mean, this guy was on top of his game. He felt great and everything else. Well, one day they did an x-ray and found this supposed lump or something in his lung. So they go in, worried that it was cancer. They did surgery. It wasn't. It was a benign tumor. But the lung doctor said, I want you off all supplements for 9 months. Well, he followed the advice of that physician, which I wouldn't be one that would, because I'm going to think for myself. Sorry. But he didn't have any good, valid reason for that. Well, what happened was, so he was off all supplements for 9 months. The difference in that blood work, and he didn't change anything else in his life. He still went to the gym. He still ate the same. He just slept the same. Nothing changed. The difference was like two different human beings after 9 months of no supplements. It was one of the most convincing pieces of paper I have ever looked at in my 40-plus year career of what nutrients can do. And again, when people ask me, I say, I think we should be doing about 1,000 milligrams twice a day. Yes, I went through that era with Linus Pauling's theory of bowel tolerance, and maybe explain to people, because there may be a place for that in some people for some reasons. What was Linus Pauling talking about with this bowel tolerance, trying to figure out that dose?
Well, the dose of vitamin C is going to vary, in my opinion, amongst each individual. And Linus Pauling was a big believer that your body absorbs different amounts of vitamin C from the digestive tract based on your needs. not the stereotypical average person's need. And in having too much vitamin C in the GI tract has a known side effect of causing gastrointestinal distress, often upset stomach or diarrhea. So he would suggest people take vitamin C up until, like to start with 1 gram a day and then take 2 grams a day. Try to spread it out if you can, like you mentioned. It's a water-soluble compound that it's beneficial to take a smaller dose as many times a day as you can, still be practical. But Dr. Pauling suggested that you keep increasing your dose until the GI tract problems occurred, and then you back down a gram from that. And my father was friends with Pauling, and they used to do a lot of radio together, of all things. They were very complementary to one another in their styles, and my father would recommend people take 4 grams a day because he twice in two servings if possible. 3 would even be better. 4 would be ideal, but it's not practical for a lot of people. But Pauling would get angry with my father and say, "Why do you tell people 4 grams a day? You're hurting people's health. You should be telling them to take more." But now the Linus Pauling Institute, as an example, I think recommends 200 grams a day, and it's the dose is it's a highly debatable topic depending on what type of applications people are looking for and what they're going to use as the benchmark for the vitamin C. I mean, if you're only looking at it to prevent scurvy, the dose that you're going to take is going to be very different than if you're going to want to keep your immune system in tip-top shape and make sure all the neutrophils have the ammunition they need to denature and destroy germs in the body, viruses, bacteria, other foreign matter that makes its way in there. So it's always difficult to talk about the dose, but Pauling was a big believer in that bowel tolerance way of dosing.
Yes, and I've done that many a times when I felt that I needed special assistance with my nutrients and vitamin C in particular, which means basically I wasn't feeling well. And, I don't like that. So I've kind of learned that my bowel tolerance was about 9,000 milligrams. If I did 3,000 in the morning, 3,000 midday, then by the third dose, about 3,000, I would start getting loose stools. Sometimes I have to go to 12 grams. And I don't know from memory, but I know Linus Pauling, he really liked to do that, get to bowel tolerance and back off maybe 15 or 20%. And then he felt like that was the dose. And I always am amused by the fact that I think Linus Pauling lived to either be 92 or 93, and the amount of naysayers who said, "See, the vitamin C didn't work." And it really doesn't matter if I live to be 112, the naysayers are going to say that. However, there's a lot less naysayers today than there ever has been. They cannot debate some of the PubMed and some of the significant research and some of the biochemistry involved in this whole process. And but there will always be debate. And you're right. And it's not an exact science. I actually have a book upstairs by Merck. I just thought of this. It was printed in, I think, 1943, and the label was vitamin C, and it was made by Merck Pharmaceuticals. The book was written. So intriguing. It talked about its benefit, a whole section on tuberculosis. I mean, that was a scary time with many infectious diseases, and Merck was embracing it. Of course, once the strong drugs got a hold of the whole system, then everything changed. But I still know that I do value vitamin C as a very great asset. When I say I do 2,000 milligrams a day, that's not including what's in my multiple and maybe a couple other things and what's in my food, because I eat a very varied diet of plant-based foods, good solid protein, and high levels of healthy fat. I'm on basically a keto type of diet at this stage of my life, and I do about 50 to 60 carbs Monday through Friday. I do about 150 on Saturday and Sunday. I do intermittent fasting 4 to 5 days a week, and I don't really know if I'll live a day longer than if I didn't do these things, but I can tell you the quality of life is exceptionally greater at my age. I did 63 push-ups on my 63rd birthday last year, and I'm still doing crazy things in the gym. And that's my test. That is, instead of running to the doctor to get physical, which is basically not that meaningful, I want to test it in the gym, because if I can hold my breath still for 2.5 to 3 minutes and I can do all this, well, something's positive. There's no doubt.
You're living right. You're living right.
Yeah, and, we do rent these old bodies, and they're going to wear out no matter how many supplements I take. But even if I kick the bucket tomorrow, because we're all really about one blood clot away from being upside down in life, and that can be just bad luck, not bad health. So I just always want to say that whether I made it to a point now where if I did fall over after this interview, I still know the value of really good, solid nutritional supplementation and food and lifestyle. And I know there's a website. It's not the best put together one, but it's called dryourself.com, dryourself.com. And he talks a ton about vitamin C research and has compiled a whole bunch of stuff on vitamin C for those who want to delve into it from a person who has a passion for the benefit of vitamin C on so many levels. And I guess in closing, Richard, let's talk just a little bit about the collagen building capacity of vitamin C, because we all want to, again, age gracefully, but with that, we want to look a little better. I mean, we all are a little bit vain, and I know that, and I don't know if this is just a mental thing in me, but when you look at people who smoke, their faces age almost always quicker than those who don't. I'm wondering if it's the part of that is the fact that smoking decreases vitamin C significantly. I don't know, but I do know that the collagen is an important substance, and we want to produce as much as we can as we get older. In fact, saying that, I'm doing right now, because I'm always doing something strange, I'm doing a red light therapy every other day in this big room that I walk into, and it's supposed to help build more collagen. So, the silica that I use and the vitamin C and red light, I'm doing all I can to hang on, I guess. So tell us a little bit before closing on the vitamin C connection to collagen.
Well, the body has to make a pound of collagen every 5 days to replace, repair, rejuvenate 7 sets of tissues in the body, which I think comprise about half of the collagen. So I think that the human body needs to make about 2 pounds of collagen every 5 days in order to completely repair itself. And exactly like you said with the smoking depletes the vitamin C in the body. And people that smoke generally look at least 15% more commonly 30% older than they are because they're the smoking introduces free radicals that damage the collagen you have, and B, suppress the body's ability to make new collagen. But collagen production is an enzymatic-driven process, and enzymes require cofactors. And of the 10 enzymes that are currently well accepted to be involved in collagen production, 7 of them require vitamin C to function properly. And if you don't have enough vitamin C, you can't, it's a limiting factor on how much collagen you can make and how well the body repairs itself. And there's some beautiful work. The first epidemiological study that looked at what people put in their mouth and how it affected their appearance clearly showed that people that ate higher amounts of vitamin C, even modest amounts, we're talking 120 grams a day or more, had noticeably fewer wrinkles, better skin moisture, better skin elasticity than people that didn't. And the lipophilic vitamin C you were talking about earlier just went public with some data that they did on skin aging, and they found that I think it was 1 gram a day reduced fine lines and wrinkles and increased skin radiance in something like 4 weeks, and their results with 3 grams a day were even phenomenally better. Also, they're with bone research, vitamin C is quite an interesting topic right now. There's been quite a few epidemiological studies that show people with low vitamin C intake from their diet or supplements have a high fracture rate, and they have low bone mineral density. And there's 2 very fine studies, one which went 17 years, that show that people with the even modest vitamin C intakes from their diet have lower fracture rate and more bone mineral density and bone mineral content than those that consume more around what the daily value is at 90 milligrams a day now. So it's as a connective tissue guy, my work with vitamin C is generally in that area, but it's also it's a critical component for so many things in the body, especially the immune system and the stress response system.
That is awesome. And just what a, power-packed 35 minutes of information that you've given all of us. And I think between you and I speaking, I think we've armed people quite well to make better choices and to understand the incredible value of at least moderate doses. And again, I always go back to, why would you want to not have optimal in your life? I don't really care about the optimal paper towel in my kitchen, but I care about the optimal longevity, strength in the gym, look of my skin, disease prevention. And so when something's extremely safe, and we talked about weighing risk against benefit, what in the heck is the real risk of taking a few thousand milligrams of vitamin C? Well, you're going to risk a little bit of money. You might get a loose stool if you're super sensitive, but probably not, especially if you make the right choice. And if it doesn't work, you're really not a big loser. The thing is, it's going to do something positive. It may be 2% of what you want. It could be 100%. But again, put the odds in your court by starting these things before we fall apart, hopefully. But there's always hope. No matter where you are with health, you can start something. So I appreciate your time, Richard. Your biochemistry background is phenomenal. You've had so many decades of experience in the area of nutrients and nutritional supplementation, research, and biochemistry. And I think everyone is going to be better served by taking this information that you have presented and we've talked about. So thank you so much for joining me on the Holistic Navigator again.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity, and I really respect everything you said, and especially in the last part about what's the downside. I always look at vitamin C a little bit like jet fuel plane. I don't want the exact amount of fuel to fly from Baltimore to London. I want there to be a little bit of extra fuel in the plane in case we encounter some trouble on the flight, and I don't think there's anything wrong having a little bit of extra vitamin C in the body each day. If you only absorb 80% of it because you don't need it one day, that's great. There will be a day you need that extra 20%, and it'll be there for you. So, but thank you very much for the opportunity to share my thoughts on vitamin C. It's a real opportunity. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And again, thanks everyone for listening each week or at least every other week to the Holistic Navigator. And we will continue this for the almost to 100 now, almost, and we'll do another 100, I'm sure, over the next couple years. There's so much information that keeps coming up, not even the old school information. Like, I love this vitamin C conversation because it's something that, I remember the vitamin C talk when I was 8 years old and I'm almost 64. So it's been around probably longer as far as a conversation than any part of the nutritional discussion in the whole world. And so everybody, I want you to make sure that, again, feel empowered. Send us questions if you have it. Look, learn. Don't be a victim. Being a victim means you have to look for a rescuer. And that's how many of the organized medical fields are operating, is by making people feel victimized. And that is not healthy on any regard. So empower yourself. We are always here to help you to learn more, to be optimally healthy. Thank you.
The information on this podcast and the topics discussed have not been evaluated by the FDA or anyone of the medical profession, and is not aimed to replace any advice you may receive from your medical practitioner. The Holistic Navigator assumes no responsibility or liability whatsoever on behalf of any purchaser or listener of these materials. The Holistic Navigator is not a doctor, nor does he claim to be. Please consult your physician before beginning any health regimen.